talk on getting started with jQuery Mobile. If you want to look up more information about myself, you can read my blog or check my Twitter handle. You can also follow along with the slides. I posted them online, so you can follow along if you wish now, or you can refer to them after the presentation for reference material. I'd like to start with three interesting questions to begin the talk. The first question, what are the most popular activities people do on their mobile devices? We have browse the web. Anyone else? Get directions? Email? Buy things? In the US, text messaging is number one at 68%, followed by taking pictures. So the mobile device is actually the latest camera. But from a mobile perspective, mobile web perspective, browsing is actually number four, slightly higher than application consumption. So web consumption on mobile devices is high. Question number two. Facebook has an M.dot site. They have an iOS app. They have an Android app and a BlackBerry app. Which is their most popular? The Android, I heard an M.dot. From a mobile offering perspective, M.dot Facebook is their most popular platform. Obviously, desktop is most popular at 67%, but from their mobile offerings, M.dot is number one. It's quite big discrepancy versus some of their native offerings. So M.dot is a very popular channel for those that can't discriminate to their audience. Last question. Twitter has an M.dot site, an iOS app, an Android app, and a BlackBerry app. Which is their most popular mobile offering? What's that? Yeah, Twitter. Yeah. Joe nailed it. It's M.dot. Again, for Twitter, Twitter.com has the widest reach, their desktop site. However, if you look at their mobile offerings, M.Twitter, their mobile website, is number one, followed by SMS and then the iPhone and BlackBerry apps. So M.dot is very popular, again, for those sites that can't discriminate. They need to be available for a wide array of audiences. jQuery Mobile is a UI framework for building cross-platform mobile web applications. With a single jQuery Mobile code base, we can create a unified user experience for nearly all mobile devices. That's what jQuery Mobile is, and the lead behind this project is the Filament Group. They're a software development company in Boston. Who here has played Oregon Trail? The one thing I love about Oregon Trail, it reminded me of mobile web development of 2 years ago. So in Oregon Trail, you start off on your journey. Everyone's healthy. You have food. You have supplies. Everyone's still alive. You go off on your journey, your mobile web development journey, and just quirks happen. Things break. You lose wheels. You lose kids. You lose your oxen. You cross a river, and everything just breaks down. That's kind of like how mobile web development was 2 years ago. Even 1 year ago, mobile web development was very challenging and difficult. We didn't have a lot of the frameworks we do now. Now we do have more frameworks. jQuery Mobile in particular is one of them that simplifies the journey. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how jQuery Mobile simplifies the journey. It's one code base. With one code base made up of tools and technologies we are already familiar with, I'm willing to bet that most of us are probably already familiar with most of these tools. We have HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. jQuery is the most popular JavaScript framework. And we have jQuery Mobile. So that's the tool set that makes up jQuery Mobile. But the point is, it's one code base. With that single code base, we can create a mobile web app that runs on not just every device, but no customer left behind. With that single code base, we can build apps for nearly every device and nearly every customer. So whether it's Android, BlackBerry, WebOS, iOS, an e-reader, other phones, desktop browsers, or even TVs with browsers, jQuery Mobile will run on all of those devices with that single code base. So I have three slides that have the little index finger on them. The prior slide had it. So when you walk away from this talk, at least remember three things. One code base and no customer left behind are two. There's one more slide that I'm going to show that has another remember me on it. Not everyone has an iPhone. That's why it's important to remember why it seems like most do, but not everyone has an iPhone. Before you choose your technology stack that you're going to use to build with, you need to understand who is your customer. You know, look at the analytics. Who are your customers? If everyone has an iPhone, build native iPhone apps, if it makes sense, if you're going to leverage a lot of those native features. However, if you work for an industry where your customers are diverse, where their platform is kind of segmented, then you need to look at another platform. And jQuery Mobile is actually one of those platforms that serves very well if your customer base is segmented like this graph. The third slide for the Remember Me index finger is jQuery Mobile is built with simplified markup-driven development. By simply looking at this markup on the left, we run that within a jQuery Mobile engine. The output is a screen we'll see on the right. That's a semantic HTML, right? So we have content that, if you're familiar with HTML, it should appear very readable to you. The learning curve with jQuery Mobile is these data attributes. In HTML5, data attributes was a new feature. jQuery Mobile, for the most part, you code with markup. And these data attributes are really what drive those enhancements you see on the right. So for instance, here we have really just our page containers. We have the page container, the header container, content container, and footer container. jQuery Mobile will simply parse that markup, and where those attributes are, where those data attributes are, it will enhance those. So for instance, the header is kind of header optimized, your content, and your footer. And we'll look at more examples of these as we go. But the point is it's simplified markup-driven HTML, which gives us a unified user interface. So I own an iOS device and an Android device. One of my most popular apps is actually Twitter. Those apps are quite different. The Twitter app on Android has navigation at the top. Twitter on iOS has navigation at the bottom. However, if you're building a mobile website, it's a unified user experience. I don't have to retrain my thoughts when I switch from iOS to Android. It's the same experience when you're on MDOT, regardless of what platform you're on. If you're on Android, Windows, or iOS. So it's a unified user experience. With jQuery Mobile, we also get progressive enhancement out of the box if those devices support it. For instance, iOS is an A-grade experience. They support the latest CSS, media queries, and all those features that give them an optimized experience. However, if you have an older BlackBerry device, like the Curve, which is several years old, it doesn't support the latest CSS and media query properties. But what jQuery does is it'll inspect that device, and if it doesn't support that, it won't enhance it. You'll get the native HTML look and feel, which is important because you still don't want to discriminate. If you have like a site that gives someone healthcare information, They need to see that information, regardless of whether or not their device supports that or not. Additionally, you get responsive design, which is nice. So with jQuery mobile apps, whether or not you're in portrait mode or switch to landscape mode, it will just work. Or if your site is run on a tablet or on a desktop, it will responsively expand or contract for the size of that form factor. You get that for free with jQuery Mobile. Another example is forms. So in portrait mode, the label is above the form field. However, when you switch your orientation to landscape, the label is side by side the form field, giving you more real estate to work with. In jQuery Mobile, you get themable styling. Out of the box, you get a default theme set. So the default theme is on the left. So by default, the header is black background with white text, like your list items have white backgrounds. You can change those themes in Markup, and I'll show you examples of that. So again, it's the data-theme attribute. And jQuery Mobile has different values. And right now, it's A through E are the defaults. And we'll also look at a tool called Theme Roller, which allows you to quickly roll your own themes for your own branding and things like that. jQuery Mobile apps are also accessible for 508 compliance, which is very important if you're doing development for the federal government, the state agencies, because they require it. jQuery Mobile adds role attributes and area attributes to your markup for you on the elements that require them for the assistive technologies. And I recently tested this on an app I wrote recently, and it worked really, really well with iOS's VoiceOver. So VoiceOver will actually speak like the header elements and the button elements as you push them, and it works really well. No restrictions. So there's no developer tools to pay for, no developer certificates to buy, and there's no certification process to go through when you deploy to production. This slide is a bit old, but it shows kind of the other mobile web framers that are out in the landscape. So there's jQuery Mobile, there's JQ Touch, Sencha Touch. Those are the primarily 3 players in the market right now. So let's go through a quick example. Let's get started and see. So as you leave here today, you'll probably want to play with the framework if you haven't already. Let's take a look at what that entails. Step 1 is we simply create a web page with markup that you're familiar with today. So this is just a raw HTML page. So we have a header of movies and a listing of movie items. So if we would run that in like an emulator, we'd see the screen on the right. That's 20 seconds of the 60. Step 2, we add the jQuery Mobile assets to the head. In jQuery Mobile, there's 3 assets. There's the CSS, which gives us our pretty enhancements, the styling. The second asset is jQuery itself. jQuery Mobile extends that. And the third asset is the jQuery Mobile JavaScript, which is really the engine that does all of the enhancements. That's another 20 seconds. 40 have been taken. And step 3, we take that listing, and now we can add our data attributes. For instance, the header. We've added a div tag around that and added a data role of header. So that gives us our movies on a black background at the top. And then with our list, we've simply added a data role equal list view. And what that does, since we have anchor links for our movies, that list view attribute, jQuery Mobile has added a kind of a right chevron arrow to indicate that that's now clickable. And it's added some padding above and below each movie name with a list divider between each list item. So that was very, very quick. Just take HTML that you're familiar with, add jQuery Mobile, and add The syntactic sugar is really these data attributes. jQuery Mobile will then, as that page is rendered, jQuery Mobile will iterate that markup and enhance those data attributes, and what you see on the right is the output. That's the end of the 60 seconds. This is just extra. So we can take that a step further. For instance, now we take our list, we wrap it within a content container, which gives us additional padding. The next data attribute is the data-inset equals true. So the prior screen was edge to edge. The list was edge to edge. Here we want it inset a little bit. So that'll give us rounded corners and some padding all the way around. And we've added a list divider. So the movies that are now playing, that's our list divider, which is really just a header. We've also added a little more information to our movie. So it's not just the name anymore. We've added an image and some additional metadata for the rating and the runtime. What's interesting to note is jQuery Mobile will, within a list, for instance, will take that image and automatically position it to the left. It'll scale that image down appropriately and align the text neatly to the right. We get that for free. We don't even need data attributes for that. So I just get an example of how we can quickly enhance our markup with jQuery Mobile. Additionally, we can do the theming and the branding. So here's that data theme attribute. For instance, by default, the header has black backgrounds with white text. That's the A is the default. Here we've changed the theme for the header to be B, which is blue, and you can roll your own themes. And likewise, any element essentially can be themed to a different style or theme. And Theme Roller is one such tool where you can roll your own themes relatively quickly. jQueryMobile.com/themeroller. You can go there, you can load the default theme and change it, or you can start fresh with your own themes. It's really WYSIWYG, so you can drag and drop colors, do gradients, change font colors, sizes, types. You can then export that theme, which is really, it'll be a zip file of your CSS. You can now load that into your project and go. Or if you want, you can just go to the raw CSS and change it there. jQuery Mobile has a single page template to choose from or a multi-page template. So here's an example of a multi-page template. You really have one HTML file within this body element, but you can embed multiple page containers in it. Now this would be a good use case, for instance, if you had kind of a strict flow within a use case. So for instance, if someone's going to go to this page, and you know they're going to go to this next page, it's like a sequential flow. They can't dynamically go outside that flow. That would be a good candidate for this type of pattern, the multi-page template pattern. It's really loading multiple pages up front with one HTTP server request. And then as they transition to that second page, it's lightning fast. So that's a trade-off. You can do this, but it's not often. It's a little out of the norm. So it's not something people do often, but it's there if your use case is available. That would be a good candidate for that. Alternatively, you may want to use a single page template and use the prefetch tag. Now what that does is you can still use your single page template model, which we're more familiar with. And if you have a link that you're highly confident that a user will click, you could load that up front by appending the data-prefetch attribute to it. So essentially when this page loads, jQuery Mobile will hit that data prefetch element and use Ajax to go fetch that page and add it to the DOM. So when that user clicks that link, it has already made that HTTP request, so it's fast. Yes. So it's optimized so that page will render wholly for the user, and then it will hit that Ajax request right at the end. All links in jQuery Mobile are Ajaxified, which means when you click on a link, jQuery Mobile will go load that page with an Ajax request, bring it back, append it to the DOM, it will enhance it, and then it will transition to that page. Let's take a look at how that works from a mobile device. So here we have one page with a link on it. Step one, you tap the button to navigate to that page. What jQuery Mobile will do is it'll initiate that Ajax request. It'll go to the server, load that page, append it to the DOM side by side, and enhance it. The next thing it will do after it enhances that page is it'll initiate the transition. Now this is how you can get smooth transitions on the web. That's why you have to load that page side by side onto the DOM, because what happens is you need to have a smooth transition. And to get that, this is an ideal solution for that. So we have two pages side by side on the DOM, then the transition executes, and it will do a smooth slide, or whichever transition type you have defined. So it transitions to the next page, and then the transition is complete. So that's an example of how that Ajax navigation works. There are multiple transitions within jQuery Mobile. In jQuery Mobile 1.1, jQuery Mobile 1.1 release candidate 2 just released yesterday. So here are the different transitions you can use: slide, slide up, fade. There's quite a few to choose from. Yeah, so there is a loading, an activity indicator, a loading message that will spin during that process. Yeah, so if you have a very fast load and transition, you may not even see it. However, if it's an expensive page, if it's heavyweight, you will definitely see the activity indicator. Yes. Pardon me? The emulators? Are you referring to this? What I typically do, I use the emulators a lot. I typically do mobile development. I do mobile development on different browsers. So I'll start on desktop. But what works best for me is I actually get physical devices, and I have put them to my local server. And that's actually the best solution: is use a physical device, a real device. Now, if your shop doesn't have a lot of devices, just poll everyone in your corporation and see what devices do you have. Keep an inventory of what people have, and try to get a good inventory of kind of what your real customers have. So, like, I get at least an iOS device, an Android device, a couple. That's what we have at our company. And if we don't have all those devices, we actually see what other coworkers in your company have. Just use real devices. So you can use other things like Device Anywhere, but it's best to use physical devices to see it in your hand. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're located in the Twin Cities, there's a place called Live Farms that offers a lab you can drive into in the middle of the workday called Final Lab. It offers, I think, like 2 or 3 dozen different mobile devices you can try and you can customize all creatively. It's called, what's the name of the system? It's finaltag.com. Write that down, and it's they charge you if you want to have like, yeah, it's an hour or two is free, and then beyond that, you have to pay a monthly fee.
That's good to know. So, but it is important to test on real devices. I mean, that's indispensable. Dialogues. So to create dialogues, we essentially, instead of data role page, we name it data role dialog. And with that, we'll get the smaller dialog right there. We can do different things as well, like we can create action sheets, which gives you more of a prompt with multiple choices to choose from. We can simply remove the header to get our action sheet. jQuery Mobile also supports tab bars, so you can use tab bars with standard icons, custom icons, and within jQuery Mobile you get an image sprite of different icons to actually apply, like a home icon or star icon, a grid icon. You can create segmented controls if you need like an alternate view of the same data is really what a good use case for a segmented control. We can create that by adding data role control group, which will group our buttons together, and data type horizontal actually displays them horizontally. Keyboard sensitive input types. So input type equal text, number, email, URL, tel, or a text area. The important thing about this is on HTML5, when you leverage those types, you'll get the appropriate keyboard for that type. For instance, here in the middle, number, type equal number, we put focus into that form field, we get the numerical keypad, which is very useful. So use the appropriate types when necessary. The new HTML5 date types have nice date widgets finally. We can build radio buttons, checkboxes, vertically or horizontally, sliders and switch controls. This one here, the brightness slider, is actually a newer in jQuery Mobile 1.1. It's actually a mini. Data-mini equals true, so it's a smaller. The one above it is the non-mini version. The one below it, the brightness, is the mini version. Grids. So you can do grids in jQuery Mobile. And this is simply with div elements and class attributes. You can create even grids, uneven grids. Again, since jQuery Mobile is HTML5 based, you can do anything that you can do in HTML. So this is an example of a springboard or a dashboard. You can use gradients. So gradients are a good use case on mobile because it's an alternative to images. Gradients are fast. They don't incur an HTTP request. Anything you do in HTML5, you can do in jQuery Mobile. So here's the themes. So out of the box, you get the 5 themes, A through E. The good thing about the jQuery Mobile theming system is, number one, you can roll your own pretty quickly. Some native apps, it's not as easy to swap out a different theme very quickly because it's usually embedded in XML or in code. In jQuery Mobile, defaults do apply. So every component will, out of the box, have a default. And what's nice is they also will inherit from like their parent container. So you don't have to add a theme to actually every little element. For instance, the screen on the far right, the page has the E theme, and certain components inherit that. So that's actually a time savings. As I said earlier, the number one learning curve with jQuery Mobile is learning those data attributes. That's the step one. The next step is actually there's an event system that's kind of complex, but if we only focus it down to the 2 most common events, mobile init is one, and page init is the other. So for instance, when we load a page, mobile init is actually the very first event to trigger when jQuery Mobile initializes. When jQuery Mobile initializes, you can actually set kind of your defaults. For instance, there was a question about the loading or activity indicator. The second line there is I set the loading message text. So by default, the loading indicator is kind of just a spinning wheel type of thing. You can also add text to it. By default, it doesn't have text shown with that spinning wheel. But if you wanted to show that spinning wheel with text, you can do so in mobile init. So if we look at the yellow notes on the right, so when you do a page change, the first thing that happens is we load that page. jQuery Mobile will enhance that page. Now you can bind to those events and do certain processing at any of those steps that you need to. The DOM ready event in jQuery Mobile is page init. Now that's where you do kind of your event binding. So for example, you have like buttons you need to add event handlers for. That's what you set up in page init. And those are the two most popular events. Setting up configuration settings in mobile init and setting your event handlers in page init. You also have a mobile API. So for every data attribute, you can do everything programmatically if you wanted to. However, the data attributes are just so simple, that's the #1 way to go. However, I could do everything with the mobile API. Now this is an example where I have a button at the top. Now if I click on that button, I can essentially create a new page on the fly. My new page is now created on the fly, which just says hello again. I append that to my page container, and then I change that page. So you can do things programmatically if you want to, or if you need to go to that level. If you're looking for inspiration, like what are people actually building with jQuery Mobile, take a look at JQM Gallery. So it has quite a large list of sites that have been built with jQuery Mobile. The Barack Obama site, 2012 IKEA, Audi, there's a Sadoo site, Take Me Fishing. So take a look at that. If you're looking for inspiration, that's a good place to go. So we have safely arrived at our destination. So if this was 2 years ago, you'd have gone on that Oregon Trail journey, we would have lost a wheel, and we would have tipped over in the river. However, today with jQuery Mobile, that journey is simplified. So out of the box, jQuery Mobile is supported in quite a large list of browsers. We saw that list, the iOS, the Android, the BlackBerry, the Winmo, that large list. jQuery Mobile simplifies a lot of that effort. So simplified markup-driven development greatly speeds up development. We know that when we run these apps on devices, the features out of the box will work on all those devices. So simplified markup-driven development, one code base with technologies that we are already familiar with, no customer left behind. Any questions? So I've covered just the basics. I'm giving this talk again next week at Code Camp, where I'll actually dive more into the code and show demos. But do you have any questions on what you've seen? Yes? Yes. Yeah, so you could look at the user agent, detect the user agent, and do things like that. So the answer to your question is quickly yes. So yes, you can do that. You can detect the user agent. Yes. Yeah. So the answer is yes, you can prefetch as many pages as you want, but you need to be responsible with that feature. You don't want to download too many pages. Again, you want to be responsible and only add that prefetch attribute to links you know, almost guaranteed that user will click. But right now, there is no way to identify what carrier or network someone is on, not that I'm aware of, from mobile web. Not from mobile web. Other questions? Yes. Yes. Yeah, so it's a browser. So think of it in terms of browsers. These aren't devices, but every device has a browser where jQuery Mobile will render its app to the browser. Now, the device is agnostic. Yeah, so jQuery Mobile is just creating web apps like we're all familiar with, and it's really just deploying in your browser. Regardless of what device you have, it really comes down to the browser, which is ubiquitous everywhere. Yeah, but it will expand. I think that maybe the next phase of jQuery Mobile will be to create more of a responsive type site where you have maybe less navigation. jQueryMobile.com, open that up on your desktop, and you'll see a split navigation. Scale it down to your mobile phone, and it'll be a single column. So they're responsive in that. That's outside the box. I think the next phase will be creating more of this responsive design type of. It's challenging, but that's kind of like the next phase. Just kind of make it more useful in the desktop in these huge screens, because stretching it is good. It's still going to run, and I'm going to see it. But make it a little more, take more advantage of that real estate. And add a split navigation, sidebar, main content. Do more with it. Yes. Okay. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you get simplified development. The biggest thing is you get testability. There's, I don't want to say millions, but a large user base out there testing these apps, proving that jQuery will work across all these devices. So you get a lot of testing. It's going to kind of simplify that journey, the Oregon Trail. It'll simplify that journey where you don't have to test this on an iOS device and an Android device. It should work. It should just work. So you're getting that testability, the assurance that it's going to work on all those devices. In addition to that, you're getting kind of the simplified development of those data attributes. So you don't have to roll, like that list we saw, where it styled everything, a lot of things for you. You don't have to roll that on your own. jQuery Mobile will do that for you. So it's developer savings, and it saves you testing as well across devices. All right. Let's see what I have. Thank you very much. Again, if you're wanting to learn more information about me, check out my blog or check out my book. Thanks again.